G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie David, and I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth. And I often say that's not why we're here. What we're really here to do is help investors make confident property decisions and ultimately build a high-performance portfolio that ultimately leads to building intergenerational wealth through investing in quality property. And to make confident decisions, what we love to do is bring guests into our studio. Now, you often hear me call them best in breed. So these people are specialists in their area when it comes to property investment and working with clients over a number of years. Today's guest is definitely no exception to the rule. In fact, sets a very, very high standard in what she and her team are bringing to the industry. And I'd love to welcome Rebecca Cribbin from Holiday Rental Specialists. Good morning. How are you doing, Rebecca?
Good morning, Aaron. Very well. Thank you very much. And you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. And super excited.
Day.
It is. It's stunning. I mean, it's probably no secret. You know, we've been inundated with plenty of rain. So to see the sun out, my spirit is, I'm so lifted at the moment.
Absolutely. We're all motivated and ready to go, aren't we? Let's go. Let's do this.
We're going to talk about your journey today. We're going to talk about everything short-term rentals, which I know is the core and heartbeat of your business. But to go back a step, you run your business, Holiday Rental Specialists. You're based down in the beautiful Southern Highlands, and you've done a lot of work building your business, industry advocacy as well, and newly minted author. And we'll go back to your book in a second. But what I'd like to do is take us behind the scenes on your journey for the last 12 years, building your business, building your team, working with hundreds of clients, if not thousands, for example, and setting a standard in your industry that sees probably working with close to 100,000 guests a year. That's short-term rentals and holidays. That's another client perspective as well, that you're working with guests to create those wonderful memories as well. And I'd love to really learn what I call about the 3 Ps: about yourself personally, about yourself professionally, and about your own property journey as well, Rebecca.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Aaron. Well, who am I? Well, I think firstly, I'm human. And I think that as far as short-term rentals are concerned, I'm very human because I've made all the mistakes that you could possibly make over the last 12 years, 1,200 properties. And as you said, probably nearly 500,000 guests have stayed at the properties that we looked after. So I'm human. Yeah. I'm a mother, and I've been a business woman for the entire time that I've been raising children. So, the lessons have been about work-life balance and growing a business and making sure that I take the time for both myself and my family, which is constantly a challenge. I'm a business owner, obviously, and that itself comes with challenges. I'm a boss. And, that's probably the most important part of my journey, is learning how to help all of my team, because really when you're running a small business, you're supporting, lots of families. And that's been an interesting ride for me as well. And as you said, now I'm a published author with a new book, which, as you said, we'll come back to, but it's Ready, Set, Booked. And it gives investors like yours that you're talking to during this podcast all the tips, tricks and tools that they need to succeed in setting up a short-term rental. It's great. So over the last 12 years, I've grown from 1 to about 350 properties under management. We actually have our central office in the Southern Highlands, but we operate our business within a 3-hour radius of Sydney in regional areas only, so not in Sydney. So we basically look after everything for an owner of an investment property that wants to short-term rent it, right from helping them to set it up, make sure that it's regulated, is covered by the regulations and compliance, right through to taking the money, advertising the property on Airbnb, booking.com, stays, etc. So, and then at the end of the month, paying all the bills and, like a standard residential or permanent property manager, paying the owner what's left over.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's and I'll go to that sequence in terms of what's left over because that's super important. It's almost the exact way our businesses are run, isn't it? Revenue comes in the door, expenses go out, and then it's what's left over, and that's it's not turnover, it's what's left over. That's the most important part of running a business, and it's almost the identical journey anyone go through a short-term rental is going to have to see their investment as a business as well, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And I think, Aaron, the biggest challenge with short-term rentals is that when an investor sees the nightly rate that's available to earn, it can become very exciting, and they can then, become give that all the attention and not understand that there are so many costs that come out after the nightly rate. So the guest, say the guest pays $2,000 a night.
Yeah.
Well, a property of that caliber, it might cost $500 or $600 to clean the property. And then you've got linen, you've got the costs associated with paying Airbnb, Booking.com stays, and all the other websites that are slowly becoming available for short-term rentals. So the dollar figure that you see to the guest is nowhere near the dollar figure that you actually get in your pocket at the end of the day. In fact, we say, if you look at it, you can probably, on the standard regional property, if you look at, say, $2,000, then you're probably likely to walk away with 30 to 40%.
That's incredible when you do a breakdown of that, isn't it? Like your net income of that's going to be 30 to 40%.
Of what the guest pays. That's exactly right. And then, of course, owners need to pay their mortgage if they have one. Right. So, generally, unless you're in a really high tourist area, and you're getting back-to-back bookings all year round, and there are some places that you can buy properties that do get back-to-back bookings all year round. Yeah. However, the values of the properties then come into play, don't they? Because and then the rental returns from a residential perspective are higher because the property values are higher. So we do say to our owners, yes, expect 30 to 40%, but also expect that your bottom line is probably going to be about the same as a standard residential rental in a regional area. But there's so many benefits associated with having a short-term rental.
So let's have a chat about that. So let's talk about the benefits. So this is maybe a stark reality for a lot of people that get excited. Like you said, I see the number, the gross number per night or what I can get per week on a booking. You've also mentioned the net figure, but I just want to go back a step because you're saying this is in great locations, and it's like anything in property, it always comes down to buying in a great location. Is there a difference between, say, a beachside village, say like South Coast, Husky, for example, or anything down the Jervis Bay, Shoalhaven area, compared to something, say, Lura or Barra, which has a much different vibe? So, I mean, you've got this summer beach vibe, which is always super popular, but then you've got another area that's, I don't know, a bit more quaint, a bit more country, for example, and has that winterish vibe to it. Do you see that difference in seasonality?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and one we get quite often because we look after about 180 properties on the South Coast. We also have properties in the Southern Islands and the Blue Mountains. And the key to success there is if you want all year round bookings on the coast in places such as Huskisson, Jervis Bay, Culburra, Kalala, Kiama, even right up to Wollongong, then you have to stand out from the crowd, and it's quite a big crowd in those places. And in order to stand out from the crowd and to attract the off-seasons booking, so what we say is everybody's booked from October right through to April.
Yeah, okay.
So October to Easter, you can pretty much guarantee if you've set your property upright, and you've followed the instructions that we've given you based on 12 years of advice of seeing what works and what doesn't, then you can pretty much guarantee that you would booked every weekend and all the way through the school holidays from October to April. And then what we say to investors that are looking at buying and setting up is that if you, for the April to October, if you don't have a good number of other setup and location things in your property, then you probably won't get booked. So by that, I'm talking about, have you got a view? Have you got central heating? Have you got an open fireplace? People love fireplaces because they're coming on holidays mostly from Sydney, and they don't need a fireplace in Sydney, so they love to come to the coast. It's cold, they've got a view, they can sit in front of the fireplace, they can read a book. If you've also, your property from a photography perspective appeals to people outside of season. So, if it looks like it's warm, cozy, you've got a fireplace, you've got a view, you've got a nice big television. Certainly you've got Wi-Fi because people more and more are working whilst they are away on a break. If you've got those things, then you can achieve bookings between April and October. But if you're in a 3-bedroom standard run-of-the-mill house in the back streets of Jarvis Bay, Kalala or somewhere like that, you've got no central heating, you don't have a fireplace, you don't have a view, you didn't really listen to what we said when we told you to set it up properly, then you're unlike some of our properties don't get any bookings between April and October, but mostly because, some people just don't take advice well, and they, and it backfires because they haven't set their property up right to start with. So if you can afford to buy a property that has a view, has a fireplace, has central heating, or put them in afterwards, then you will reap the returns. Unfortunately, the rate is lower in the winter time because there's so much competition for the, from a supply perspective. But you can win.
Yeah.
You can win. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just mentioned a couple of things there. So one is styling on the property, which I'm that's going to take some investment as well. And you're going to have to style it in a certain way to attract a certain style. Like you've got a family home, it's going to be not as nice as a high-end beachfront for maybe double income, no kids, for example. Like that styling, so to speak, volumes about the type of guest that you're looking to attract. It's almost identical to a holiday. But I've got 2 small babies. I'm not staying at a Sofitel or a Hilton. I'm going to stay at something a bit more family friendly, right? Amenities and the styling of the property. So you got styling, and then you mentioned photography, and then you mentioned some of the extra features like bells and whistles on a property as well. So do you take a look at a property before a client maybe goes to buy, or they've bought it, they've come to you and saying, now I'm looking to go down the path of short-term rentals? What's your advice and guidance from here? Like, where do you ideally love to come into the mix?
So if we can, we would love to get in early, well before the property is purchased by an investor, because we know which properties are going to fly and which ones are going to crawl, and those that are just going to be run of the mill. And it doesn't actually necessarily always equate to the price that an investor has to pay. So you don't necessarily have to pay more to get some of the features that are important for a short-term rental. The living space is really important. If you're going to sleep 12 people in a property, so because you've got 5 bedrooms and one of them you're going to put 2 beds with trundles in, then you've got to seat 12 people at the dining table. And you've got to seat 12 people in the lounge area. So if the house has only got 5 bedrooms, but it's only got a small area for living space, then it won't work well as a short-term rental because you won't be able to sleep as many people as you'd like to. And of course, one of the leading reasons for success is putting heads on beds, because pricing a short-term rental comes back to a per person per night rate. And we can pretty much tell from the way the property is set up and what the per person per night rate is from a styling perspective.
Yeah.
And then how many people you can sleep in the property comfortably, obviously with enough bathrooms. It's a very complicated algorithm, that we go through. We think there's pretty much 10 steps that you need to work on in order to ensure the success of a property that you want to short-term rent.
Yeah.
And they do start with location. Then they move into the property and what, like I'm just talking about, the bedrooms.
Yeah.
But, also, Aaron, once you've got the property, first impressions count, because unlike when you're selling or permanently renting, if you're selling, a buyer can go to the property and have a look at it before they buy it. If you're permanently renting, the tenant can go to the property and look at it before you buy it. So, but with short-term rentals, they're buying online. And so you've got to stand out from the crowd online. Yeah. And, if you think about it, that could be quite difficult if your first shot isn't fabulous, because they just move on. Oh, no, that's no good. That's not us. That's not for us. We'll, move to the next. And if your price isn't right, your from price isn't right, you catch them with your from price, which might be a midweek, Wednesday midweek, and it might be $300. Yet, on the weekend you might be $1,200.
Yeah.
So, getting midweek bookings is a challenge whilst we're on that. In regional New South Wales, we really tell our investors that they need to rely on the weekends and the school holidays. Any midweeks are a bonus. So styling is really important. We recommend get a professional, right? If you're not the best at it, get a professional. With photography, we've come to the point where we won't list the property unless we organise the photos.
Nice.
Because everyone's a photographer, Aaron.
We got to find. You got to find your photographer. I've seen it. You see the photos, and anyone's tried to book online, like a short-term rental. You can see the photos. I'll give you an example. You mentioned Kalala a few times. One of our favourite spots to go down. It's not quite well. There's a property that had iPhone photos, and there was a property that had its own website that you could explore. Told you a little bit about the area, for example, had great reviews on there, told you about the features in the property. And so naturally, on every day of the week, the one with the website and that has a beautiful name and it's well styled and tells you about the area that you're going to, I feel like that's going to outperform every other property. And it's exactly like business. The ones that have great reviews, great styling, is an attraction style property is going to outperform the ones that are the mediocre run-of-the-mill, exactly what you said about run-of-the-mill type properties, isn't it?
It is. And do you know what I think the difference is, Aaron? It's taken me a while to work it out. In the investors that see it as a business where you must, always be focused on increasing your revenue.
Yeah.
Your top line revenue. And yes, you keep an eye on your expenses, but not to the detriment of the ability to be able to increase the revenue. The old revenue grows, expenses grows. Yes. Well, the investors that recognise that are the ones that are most successful and really focus on it being a business, not personal. It's not their home. It's not, because guests are not fabulous all the time either.
That's one of my next questions. Yeah.
Then you just have to switch off and realise that, your clients, if you're selling any product or service, are not always going to be your best friend, and they're not always going to do what you want them to do. So, if an investor can actually make a decision to, even though they want to stay at the property themselves, which is one of the main reasons why I would recommend short-term rentals. If you want a holiday in Kalala, Aaron, what better place for you to invest than in Kalala? And, because you get to enjoy the property and it's where you want to go with your family because of that beautiful flat beach and the ability to be able to walk for miles and, you're not that far away from the beautiful Jervis Bay National Park, and it's a lovely place to be with young children and young family. In fact, I owned a property there when my kids were young,
Oh, nice.
because I benefited from the fact that I could go there and enjoy it with my children. So as I was saying, if you can set your business up as a business, and have an expert manager if you don't have time to manage it yourself, then you'll set yourself up for success as a short-term rental owner.
Yeah, you've just mentioned set yourself up for success, which we've gone through. But what about the ones that have set themselves up for failure? Like, what happens there? What are the ones that catches? I call it tips for new players, or maybe it's wear and tear, for example, or the property needs consistent maintenance, because you got to think, coming and going, and this many people coming through your property, there's got to be some maintenance issues and wear and tear, which I know from personal experience when we have clients, that's probably the one thing that surprised them. Like the carpets, constantly need work, because it's just, coming and going from people that don't love it the same way that they love their own home. So what are some of the other trappings that you see for people that haven't succeeded going down the path of a short-term rental?
So one of the biggest ones on the coast is people that have had these properties in their families for some time, and they're buying them, and they're setting them up without really taking the due care and attention to the setup. So what we find one of the biggest challenges, and it's a hard conversation to have, is that people say, oh yes, I'll buy a holiday rental, then I'll put all my furniture from my house in Sydney in it, that's all old, and then I'll buy myself all new furniture for my house. And it happens all the time. Or Granny passes away and leaves the house in Culburra to the family, and the family leave all Granny's furniture in the family.
The brown couch isn't enduring?
Yes, and the orange carpet. Let me tell you, it happens often, and then they wonder why they're not getting bookings. Or they also wonder why the cost to clean the property is higher, because the older the house and the older the fixtures and fittings, the harder it is to keep clean. So therefore, the hourly rate associated with cleaning takes longer. So, like you're paying cleaners are another real issue, Aaron, $50 to $60 an hour now for cleaning.
Which in such a peak time like summer, like this is people's holiday time, especially, go down the coast, like that's their holiday time. But then you got to try and find cleaners to service peak holiday periods as well. I'm like, I don't envy that role either.
We've become a cleaning company, really, I guess you could say, because we spend the vast majority of our time managing it, and you can never get it right. It's almost impossible to get it right at scale, and if you're not doing it yourself. So, and owners also tend to think that it would take the same amount of time to clean a short-term rental as it does to clean a residential home. But, a short-term rental has to be clear of every piece of dirt, because it's someone else's dirt.
Yes.
Eyelashes, you can imagine, or hair. Hair is just, and if it's your own hair in your house, you sort of overlook it if you clean it, misses it 1 week because it's your own hair. But someone else's hair, that's statically stuck to the sheets or something along those lines, is just not going to cut it. And people, more and more people are expectations are higher than they've ever been in regards to cleanliness. So as a general rule for your investors, we say that if you think that it'll take 3 hours to clean residentially a property, then you can double it and add another hour.
Yeah, wow.
Because the time to clean also has to include going to the laundry with the linen, picking up, supplies from the supermarket, going and putting out the garbage bin, because the guests don't necessarily stay when it's garbage bin night, so they can't put the garbage bin out. In some properties, we can't even have them put the garbage out because they've got to walk for, especially in the country. So I think that there are lots of challenges, but get it right to start with. Don't go into it if you can't afford it. Put a permanent tenant in. If you're really reliant on the income, then a permanent tenant will give you guaranteed income.
Yeah.
But short-term rentals will give you the ability to be able to stay at the property, enjoy it yourself, conduct maintenance when you need it.
Yeah.
And, and it's only, and mostly they're booked weekends, 3 or 4 nights of the week. So, the wear and tear, as we were talking about, is not that great. And you can set it up well for wear and tear to be minimalised. Floorboards are better than carpet.
Spot on.
But then obviously you've got warmth issues if you're in the Blue Mountains or the Southern Highlands. Because floorboards are cold. So then a rug on the floorboards, but then a cheap rug that's easily replaced, not a Persian rug that cost you thousands of dollars. So it has to look good at the least expense and be easily cleaned, easily maintained, and set up for wear and tear to be minimal. And accidents happen, Aaron, and it's part of doing business.
Red wine on like your beautiful carpet or a couch, for example. Yeah.
And it happens, and you need to be prepared for it. And sometimes you can charge for it, and sometimes you just need to put it down to the cost of doing short-term rental business. And because charging a guest for broken glasses, or even, breaking a toilet seat or something like that, you just can't do it. And it's hard to establish what wear and tear is. Just as an example for you, many years ago, a guest broke the toilet lid that goes down on, like not the seat, the actual lid.
Plastic.
The plastic lid, right? They broke it. It cracked in half. And we made a claim against them for sitting on the toilet seat. And this woman, and breaking it, and this woman did some research and went to the company that made the toilet, and they provided in writing that toilet lids are to sit on. They're made to sit on. So they provided that in writing, and we had to give the lady the money back for the toilet lid, because you can sit on a toilet lid. And since then, we've never obviously been able, and they break often because they get brittle, and owners say, well, so it shouldn't sit on the toilet seat. Well, actually, proof is in the pudding. We've been taken to task on that previously. You can sit on a toilet seat. So that's our very interesting fact for the day. Aaron.
Definitely. And again, you talk about staying down the South Coast. We recently did a stint up at the Sunshine Coast, and I guess the sea salt in the air, you could just see it eroding the TV as well, and some of the metal parts in the house. I'm like, again, that's another element that you've got to brave, which is the sea, especially being down.
And if you think about taps, that's right. You think about taps, you think about toilet brushes, you think about soap dispensers, they all rust and are eaten away. So the costs associated with being on the coast could be higher because you can't have rusty anything. It looks like you don't care about the property.
Ages your property.
And one thing that I'll mention on that is that when guests see one thing wrong, Aaron, they find everything. So they make it their mission to go around looking for all the other issues. So you've got to get it right. And that means the cleaning time takes longer because every single drawer has to be opened. An eyelash in the cutlery drawer, it looks like pubic hairs. And unfortunately, they're eyelashes. But people ring us and say, oh, my goodness, there's pubic hairs in the cutlery drawer. I mean, it's human. That's what we do. And, so the cleaner, imagine your residential cleaner taking every piece of cutlery out every time. The cost associated with it is huge. And owners need to understand that when they venture in to this game. But it's a fabulous game because, as I said, you and your family and your friends can enjoy the properties, the benefits of the property, and you can hand it over to a manager like us if you don't want to do anything with it. But you need to remember that it's a business and there are costs that you probably don't want to pay, but you just have to.
You just mentioned there about, you could give it to a property manager or effectively like in DIY. I just cannot, again, I don't want to project my own opinion because there's people that may do it themselves that could do it well. I just can't understand the do-it-yourself model. I mean, can you imagine trying to, like, I'm at the property, but I can't find the keys or the key code. The key code isn't working. You're getting calls from guests at like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night when they get to a property and they can't see how to get into the house. I'm like, how do you've got to have some type of way to detach yourself from this client experience where you go, this is where a property manager pays their way or proves their worth. That's just one example. I'm sure you could rattle off far more where you go, this is the reasons why you don't want to do it yourself.
Yeah, managing the queens. I mean, what we say is that if the cost associated with us managing your property is cost effective for you, i.e. you can earn more money doing what you do and leave us to be the experts in what we do, then we suggest that you do that. If you think you want to have fun managing what the industry is, short-term rentals, but Airbnbs, if you think that's fun, then go right ahead and do it, because probably your attention to detail will be better than ours is. We do admit that. We go, when we're looking after 350 properties, and if you're looking after your own home that you love intently and that's great, go ahead and do it yourself. But when you've had enough, give us a call and we'll take it over for you because it does get frustrating, and it is, it's a minefield. And as I said at the very beginning, I'm human, and I said that for a reason, Aaron, because, there are so many turning and moving parts in short-term rentals. There's the owner of the property, there's the guests at the property, there's the cleaners, there's the maintenance, there's the pricing.
There's got to be neighbours in the mix as well. Yeah,
that's right. We're a big problem in New South Wales now because we have new legislation that came in last year associated with noise and a 2 strikes and you're out rule. Yeah. And that's, and not all neighbours are
forgiving or understanding.
No, that's right. And they don't necessarily, their level of noise depends on where the property sits. If they're in a valley, a little tiny valley, we've got a property in Gerringong, and it just sits in a little valley with 2 houses. It's the tiniest little, you wouldn't even call it a valley, but the sound, if there's people sitting out on the back deck, like talking like you and I right now, obviously the more glasses of wine they have, the louder they get. But if they're talking outside, the person next door, the neighbour, could actually just be sitting at the table with them. That's how the acoustics work in this little area. So, we have to call the guests before they stay, remind them about the noise. We've got to have signage. We've got to have, we take the calls from the neighbour. Then we've got other properties where the neighbours are just nosy and, they put their ear to the window and try and listen. And when they can hear somebody talking or playing music, they complain. Yes. So, the industry's come up with solutions for that now, which are really interesting, which is noise monitoring equipment.
Wow. Okay.
So when we have troublesome neighbours, that we can now prove the decibels that are occurring in the house, and it's all recorded for the entire stay. Only the decibel levels, of course, not what people are saying from a privacy perspective. But so we're the industry worldwide is coming up with solutions to all of the known problems.
There's all new challenges, right? Like it's it's all a new territory. It's all a new type of product and stuff. So there's all new challenges that come up.
And all these things PMs can look after for you, and provide their advice on.
But then there's property managers, and all property managers aren't created equally, Rebecca. I mean, this is something you specialize in versus you may have a real estate agency that then takes on some short-term rentals versus being a specialist. Like there's got to be a difference in knowledge. There's got to be a difference in landlord experience going through. I'm not asking you to toot your own horn here, but just say this is what you do day in, day out. This is all your client base is versus I'm a agency with a rent roll and your short-term rental sits as part of that rent roll. There's got to be a difference in skill level. Yeah.
What I will say to you on that, Aaron, is as a short-term rental manager, we're in the hospitality business.
Yeah, well said.
We're not real estate agents.
Yeah.
There's a very big difference. And in my experience, and over the years, I've bought a few rent rolls from real estate agents. And I was a real estate agent. I am a real estate agent, but we don't sell and we don't permanently rent. And that was a decision that we made to move out of real estate and into hospitality, probably 12 years ago or 11 years ago. But short-term rentals grew out of property owners living not in the area that they had their holiday rental in. And at the time, because of lack of technology, I suppose, it was difficult to manage a property away from where you are, where it was from where you are. The only option was to ask the local real estate agent if they'd look after it. And then people used to call those real estate agents and get a list of what was available for holiday rental sent to them in the post, and we used to have books of the properties that we had available, and we would send them in the post. And we still did that because there were still people who were used to that. And I think that the only option was to have a real estate agent help you. And then people would go into the real estate agency, pick up the keys.
Oh, I remember those.
Pay their money. You'd be amazed how many places all over Australia you still have to do that.
Wow.
At real estate agents that haven't moved to key safes or digital locks. You would be amazed. I was in Foster, and all of the real estate agents in Foster, you still have to go and pick up the keys.
That's insane, isn't it?
So imagine driving and you're like 5 hours on a Friday night.
Right.
And then you get, and I'll tell 2 stories here, or 3 stories. You get to the office, and you have to pick up the keys, and it's another 40 minutes on from where you were staying. So you've actually got to back onto yourself and come back for 40 minutes to where you're staying. You've got kids screaming and bashing each other in the back seat because are we there yet? Then you get to the property, and you have to make the beds because it's BYO linen.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So there's still like 20% of properties that are BYO linen. And so it's 11 o'clock at night. You've just picked up the keys. You get to the house, and then you've got to make the beds. And then you realise that there's no toilet paper because it's run by a real estate agent who says, well, it's a short-term rental. You're supposed to bring your own stuff.
Bring everything.
Yeah, so I mean, the lesson is they have to be set up properly. The whole experience starts when they jump online onto Airbnb, booking.com or Stays or our website. We get 40% of our bookings direct because we've got a great website that's easy to use. People book the second time with us if they've booked through the other sites and also we're 10% cheaper.
Yeah, great.
Because we're not charging what Airbnb, they're highway robbery, the online travel agents, up to 22%. Expedia charged 22% above what the property manager would charge.
Isn't that insane? I guess it comes down to skill level, and people just go, look, and some people want to build their reputation online, which is why they want to get more bookings, I guess, directly. That's how they incentivize, wouldn't it? Like your Airbnb sort of a lot of stays going, number of stays or revenue, like Airtask or anything. It's like, I want to build my rating on that platform, so I've got to double down and put all my bookings through there as opposed to...
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you don't have to. It's a myth. Yeah.
Perfect. I just want to wrap up with one question, which is your fresh off the press book. Tell us more in a nutshell about what's inspired your book and what readers can expect to get out of your book as well, Rebecca.
Great. Okay. So in Ready, Set, Booked, I outlined the 10 steps that you and I talked about earlier. One being where to purchase, helping people know what sort of property will get the best return, how to set up the property to appeal to the masses, why guests will pay top dollar for some features and not for others. That's a really important one we talked about. And what you can do to ensure that your property is booked for the highest rate for the maximum number of nights. So it's giving investors like the investors that we're talking to today all the tools that they need to set themselves up and their property up as a short-term rental and be successful.
Unreal. Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on the spot here. We might grab a couple of copies off your business. We'll pay for those, and we'll give it to a few lucky listeners as well. Share the love a little bit.
Beautiful. Happy to do that. And your listeners can also jump onto Amazon and grab that book, Rebecca Cribbin, Ready, Set, Booked.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rebecca. We'll include the details for yourself, your business. So anyone wants to connect with you, like you said, have a look at the listings that you've got, so maybe get some inspiration. But I think what I've heard at the very start was probably the most important takeaway, which is if you are thinking about it, engage someone like yourself very, very early, almost at that before you even maybe start looking at specific properties. Let's get an idea about what you're looking for, what type of effectively what type of business are you looking to run? Are you looking here for cash flow? Are you looking here for long-term rental income that's going to come in?
Yeah.
Great. And I feel like that's the most important part that I'm hearing is everything else is the outcome or the byproduct, but there's no income without a high quality property in a great location as well, which I feel like that's the secret to unlock right there.
You're exactly right, Aaron. And we're happy to help. And so are the managers. We've all got the tools and the experience and the runs on the board to help you.
Yeah, wonderful. Hey, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Sharing your knowledge. And this is what great experts do. They want to see their clients, they want to see more investors win in this game and just give away their knowledge so most people can kind of tap into that and do very well out of property, because that's all we want. We want to see investors excel and do well. So, Rebecca, really appreciate it. If you found this episode helpful, we'd love it if you gave us a review, gave us a thumbs up, or even gave us some feedback about some particular topics or people that you want interviewed as well, because that helps us give you quality information that investors are really yearning for. So that's a wrap for another episode. Enjoy your day. Until next time, take care.